What's happening, everybody? I am here with Ben Rasa. We are breaking down each division in the AFC as part of our season-long series here at Awesemo. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, we were obviously working through it. We've been doing our team previews, and this is a good one. These are four teams in the AFC South that actually have a lot going on. Going to be a fun one to talk about.
Absolutely, yeah. I am intrigued by a few things in this group, especially possibly a sneaky Jacksonville NFL DFS DraftKings stack in Week 1.
Oh wow.
But that might be for another show. So let's dive into the Houston Texans here. They are pretty much the same team they're bringing back as last year. A couple changes on the offensive line, but for the most part, the skill position groups. Recently, we had Donta Foreman was released and then signed by the division rival Colts after their offensive coordinator said he was light years ahead of his progress last year. So it's a very interesting move. I'm sure a lot of DFSers will be, or a lot of season-long drafters will be upset at that if they've already drafted their teams because he was a popular handcuff. So we have Will Fuller possibly coming back from an injury. We have Kiki Kute possibly coming back from an injury. Deshaun Watson has had his issues as well. What are you targeting here in the Houston Texans offense?
This is a team that, not just in season long, not just in DFS, just in life, I think is a giant boom bust potential. And it starts with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, when he is healthy, we've seen how electric he can be. He has weapons around him with Fuller. Obviously, Hopkins is on the short list for best receivers in the league. And then it's going to be, can Lamar Miller give them anything? I'm pretty skeptical of that, but I do think that if you're looking for a home run threat at quarterback, Deshaun Watson makes a very interesting play.
I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson this year. I think he's going to take the next step forward. I'm hoping, though, I think a lot of that depends on whether or not this wide receiving core is healthy. If Will Fuller is around to take the top off of defenses, that's going to open up a lot of room. I kind of buried the lead here. How do you feel about DeAndre Hopkins' fantasy prospects this season? He's going around usually as the first or second player taken after the big five running backs.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, honestly. It's a guy that it doesn't even matter. He's had so many bad QBs when Watson was hurt and produces. He seems to get all the coverage and produces. The guy's got one of the highest floors out there, PPR, non PPR. He finds his way. And if this team really maximizes their potential, that's going to start with a guy like Hopkins.
Wrapping up this receiver core, Kiki Kute, 11 catches, 109 yards, 14 targets against the Colts in Week 4. Bookended that with another 11 catch, 110-yard performance on 14 targets in the wildcard game. Other than that, he hasn't really been that great. Are you a fan of where he's going right now? Do you have him? Are you drafting him? What's your take on him this year?
I have no problem with him, but at the same time, I honestly, there's a couple guys, we've talked about in our other videos, guy like Jamison Crowder, other slot receivers that I think I feel a little more comfortable with. So, nothing against Kuti. I think he can carve out a nice role with a team, as I keep mentioning, I think has some upside, but overall not super high on my priority list.
Right there with you. I'm not drafting him at all. I kind of think there's a pretty low ceiling there and possibly a decent floor, but he's just not a very exciting pick. Finally, let's wrap things up with the tight end position. Ryan Griffin moved on, leaving 42 targets up for grabs. Do you have any interest in sixth round pick, second year tight end Jordan Thomas, who is a bit of a spark standout? The problem is they don't really target tight ends a lot in this offense.
That's obviously a huge concern, and what I was going to kind of echo. I don't know how many game scripts really are going to get someone like that involved. The Texans kind of have a blueprint of what they want to do, and when they fall behind, it doesn't seem to mitigate, a different type of plan. So I'm not there on this tight end. And I think really it's a pretty easy team to break down. You have two really electric players in Watson and Hopkins. Other than that, I don't have too much to say.
All right, let's move on to the 2019-20 Super Bowl champion, Indianapolis Colts.
Oh wow! All right,
Like that?
I respect that.
That's my bet. I like it. I'm a Frank Reich guy. Frank Reich is back. They had a fantastic season last year in Indianapolis. Chris Ballard, their GM, has proven to be one of the smartest GMs in the league, trading down whenever possible, picking up all sorts of extra assets. They have added Paris Campbell, speedy wide receiver in the Ben. Help me out. Second round, third round, second
Yeah,
round.
I believe second out of Ohio State. Really electric guy. Needs to be healthy. And that's the theme when we're filming this. Obviously, Andrew Luck as well. That calf injury is starting to worry me. What about you?
A little bit, yeah. I'm dropping him in my best ball drafts for sure. I've been taking a wait and see approach at quarterback for the most part, anyways. So if I can grab Andrew like a couple rounds later because people are a little bit scared off by it, But let's remember last year we were all worried about Andrew Luck's shoulder. So he was apparently throwing lame ducks and could not complete a pass over 30 yards, and that turned out pretty poorly for anyone fading him. So I'm an Andrew Luck believer. I'm not going to reach, but if this lowers his stock, I will happily take him. We also have a number of options for him to throw to, including Devin Funchess. Are you targeting any of these receivers outside of T.Y. Hilton? Because it seems to me like there's a lot of options for him to throw to, including Jack Doyle returning, Eric Ebron. That's, to me, seems like a very spread out offense. And as such, I have not been getting too many of the Colts on my team so far.
Me neither, honestly. I think it's more of a week-to-week thing. Obviously, in DFS, a little more pertinent. But, I want to see how Paris Campbell falls on that depth chart. And I will say that I do think that Jack Doyle's in a bounce-back spot. Obviously, Ebron was just a touchdown machine. I don't think he replicates that. He's kind of on the fade list for me. But someone like Doyle, who's always been a safety blanket for Luck, should be primed to have a pretty good role in this offense.
Well, let's move right over to tight ends then, because 30% of Eric Ebron's fantasy points last year came off of touchdowns. 13 TDs, led the league in touchdown catches among tight ends. Jack Doyle was out for much of the season. Do you think with the addition of Funchess, with the addition of Jack Doyle, that Ebron's touchdowns are sustainable?
No. Can confirm. just know. Obviously, it's not even that, and we're not. It's really hard to forecast injuries, but Ebron is a guy that's certainly been banged up. He found a way to mostly stay healthy, and it seemed that he fell in the end zone every time he touched the ball. I think that's a pretty easy for him to even approach kind of the production we saw last year. He's going to need a gigantic boost in receptions, and with all these options, I don't see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's move on. Finally, finishing up with the running back. Are you drafting Marlon Mack as though he's going to be the elite dog, 3-down back? Or are you factoring in some Naheem Hines touches, possibly some of these other running backs, including the recently signed Donta Foreman, getting into the mix?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I'm a Marlon Mack guy. I think he's very talented, but at the same time, I'm not sure that I see that type of role for him. You mentioned Hines. Foreman's something I certainly wasn't thinking about because he wasn't on this team until recently, and that's something we're going to have to consider now. So more often than not, I think I'm letting other people possibly, maybe buying in a really nice spot on someone like Matt because I think there's potential there, but I don't have a ton of them.
I am in the same boat as you. I've been targeting tight ends and wide receiver in that position in the late second round, especially because if you're getting Marlon Mack, you're probably already got one of the top 5 running backs anyway. So there's no real reason to reach on them, especially if he is in some sort of timeshare. Let's move on to the most exciting offensive team in the NFL this year, Nick Foles and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Big upgrade at quarterback, in my opinion, though not enough to get excited about. This team has a few really deep sleepers that I'm intrigued by, and I'm grabbing in the last rounds of best ball and probably in the last rounds of my season-long drafts as well. Any general thoughts about the outlook of the Jaguars this year?
Well, I think it's pretty simple for them. Obviously, it's a bizarre team. They could have maybe what they should have been in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Obviously, did not build on that. It starts with Leonard Fournette. They need to get back to running the ball with him, relying on that defense, and they need someone to step up. I do think that D.D. Westbrook is going to benefit from Foles being there. I like his abilities. I always have. Probably my favorite. And then, a guy like Chris Conley, we'll see what emerges from there. But what do you make of, there's a lot of targets to go up for grabs with the receiving core like this. Do you think any of them can kind of emerge?
Yeah, so Dante Moncrief's gone, TJ Yeldon gone, 70 targets there. Obviously, those are running back targets, but targets just the same, and 100 other 2 targets. So this is one of the teams with some of the most targets up for grabs in the NFL this year. And then when you factor in the fact that they didn't have a quarterback that could throw last year, that just makes the passing offense all the more intriguing because these guys are not going very early. So I like everyone right now, and I'm kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen with how this shakes down during the preseason. This is one of the things I'm watching the most. D.D. Westbrook, I think, is getting drafted. He's getting drafted the highest, but he probably has the safest play, the most upside. The guy I'm targeting the most is Marquise Lee, who you can get at the very last round of best ball drafts and is projected, I think, for over 100 targets this year, which is a bargain at that price. You have Keelan Cole, you have DJ Chark, and you have Chris Conley, who you just mentioned, one of my other favorite sleepers. One of the guys I'm going to be targeting in week 1 in NFL DFS at the bare min price in a possibly high game total against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I like him. He was a spark standout when he was drafted, really athletic, got loads of talent, and buzz is that he's gelled well with the team so far. So if you want a really deep sleeper, I think that's not a bad way to go. Do you think that Leonard Fournette will rebound this year with a healthier offensive line?
I do. I mean, I'm a Fournette guy. I think he's got all the potential, and they want to run the ball. Doug Marrone wants to run the ball. It's just going to be a matter of how successful the team is. Obviously, you're going to have trouble running the ball if you're down 17 in the fourth. You're going to abandon Fournette pretty quickly. But if they can sustain it, lean on that defense, there's no reason that Fournette can't be a true workhorse and a ton of work in a season like this.
I totally agree. I'm actually targeting Leonard Fournette a little bit higher. I think this is a bit of a bounce back spot after a real down year last year when he was going in the end of the first round in fantasy drafts. So a little bit underrated. I know I've had a sneak peek at Awesemo's season long rankings, and I can tell you that Leonard Fournette is a lot higher than most people's boards. So something to consider for your drafts. And in going into our Awesemo draft tonight, we'll have to snatch him from Awesemo when he is on the clock. All right, let's finish off this division. The Tennessee Titans, bit of a snoozer here, but we have coordinator change. Matt LaFleur is gone off to the Green Bay Packers after leading the Titans to the 27th ranked scoring offense last year. Titans coach Arthur Smith has been promoted to the job. I'm expecting a pretty run-heavy approach here. Do you have any general thoughts on the Titans?
Not really, like you said, they're a pretty boring team. You know, they feel like a 9-7, 8-8 type, competitive, but I doubt they make big strides. You know, Mariota's got to take that next step, and then the guy to talk about is Derrick Henry, who's not a huge value in the passing game. Some of the most heaviest work around the goal line. Obviously, going to have a ton of carries on him, especially if they can control the game and control the clock.
Are you buying into the narrative that he's going to be maybe a 2 down back plus a little bit more than that? Or is the coaching staff just going to get scared off again and go back to more of a timeshare with Dion Lewis?
You know, it's really interesting because I'm not super high on Henry, to be honest, and I do have trouble with guys that are a virtual zero in the passing game like that. It's very tough. You know, if you're talking PPR, to make up for that, you need the touchdowns. So I'm more apt to say let other people go. I know he's going to have some big games when he falls in the end zone 3 times. We've seen that. But for me, this is not a team that I'm overly excited about.
All right. Yeah, I totally agree. Let's move on to the wide receivers. Here we have Adam Humphries coming over, possibly to take over a slot role from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a pretty strong season last year, caught 59 balls for 665 yards from the slot last year. He will suffer a downgrade in production for sure, with leaving a pass-heavy offense to a run-heavy one, but still has some value in late rounds. And then Corey Davis, third-year wide receiver, former first-round pick, has the potential to break out. Are you buying into any of these guys, Ben?
You know, Corey Davis is a guy that I really think, I mean, we're going to find out pretty soon because the time is now for him. He's got the talent, hasn't really put it all together. Don't mind him in a best ball format. I think he does have that nice ceiling. And the guy I want to throw out, if you want to be aggressive, I know it was a really bad injury, but Delaney Walker has always been utilized in this offense. Mariota should be leaning on him. And if he can stay on the field, I have no problem with him at tight end.
Delaney is one of my favorite late round tight end picks as well. In the 3 years prior to his injury, finished 7th, 5th, and 4th in tight end fantasy scoring. He's getting up there in age, but I think he's still got a little gas left in the tank. In his current ADP, he is very viable in this offense because I'm not a Jonas Smith believer. I don't know if you are, but I've had enough of him being hyped up with Walker out. So give me all the Delaney Walker.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is a team that it's not one that I see a ton of fireworks for, but a couple guys here and there can certainly make the difference when you're filling out your fantasy roster.
Absolutely. All right, that wraps things up for the AFC South. One division left to preview this week, and then we'll be back next week for the NFC. Make sure to check out all of our content on Awesemo.com. We have Awesemo's season-long rankings coming out this week. We have Awesemo's NFL DFS projections for week 1 that are free right now, so make sure to check those out. And, lots of other content. Ben and I are previewing all 32 teams in the NFL this year, so we're almost done, and season's just getting started. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you soon.